Hello, my wonderful higher music class. Today we're having another literacy lesson and we're looking at transposition. Now, I know a few of you are experts on transposition, but looking at last week's homework, I think we could probably have another wee recap just to make sure we are spot on. So transposition is when the music changes key. Now, for the purposes of higher music, you only have to transpose that up or down an octave. Now, remember, an octave is 8 notes. That's So if we take an example like this one, we're starting on a C and it's going to B and back up to C for your first bar there. And if we wanted to transpose this down one octave in the treble clef, it'd be very simple. All we do is we work out our first note, which is that C there, and we go down an octave to the next possible one, which is 8 notes down, and it would be there. So if you look below, they have moved it down for us there. And it's quite simple. You could do that for every note, or you could just work out that that's C there and your next note's a B, and you do it all the way down here. So next is B, and then we're back up to C, and so on and so forth. It's as simple as that. Now, when we're including the bass clef into transposition, it's very important to know that the bass clef isn't some random floating entity out in the ether somewhere. It's attached to the treble clef. Now, it's just sitting below. If you're a piano player or any kind of classic player or whatever and so on that uses both clefs, you'll understand this. But if you're a single-lined instrumentalist or vocalist and so on, you might not quite have seen this before. This is just basically the relationship between the bass clef and the treble clef. And as you can see, this middle C here is the anchor point, the connection between these two. So this middle C on the treble clef, and that is the top C on the bass clef. And when you play that on a keyboard or whatever, it's the same note. It sounds the exact same. So it's good to have an idea that this is how the treble clef and the bass clef are connected. Now, example of incorporating the bass clef. So if you wanted to put the melody in the bass, this is how it would look. You take this C here, and remember when we just looked at the thing before, that showed us that the relationship was between the treble clef and the bass clef was anchored because of this C here in the middle. So we know that both these notes are the exact same. And from there it's very simple. You just follow the exact same pattern. So last week, obviously, we looked at the bass clef. So hopefully by now you have a strong understanding of where all the notes fall in the bass clef. So an example, if you had to move this down one octave into the bass clef, the correct answer would be, I think it maybe was somebody in this class that actually explained the 6-step rule to me. I was old-fashioned and just worked it out by the note. But the 6-step rule for transposing it down one octave, you take the first note and you count it as 1, and then you're going to count up 6. So 1, and then 2 would be the line, 3 would be the space, 4 would be the line, 5 would be the space, and 6 would be the ledger line up there. And that would be where your first note falls on that ledger line in the bass clef. And as you can see, that is what they have done there. And it's that simple, transposing it into the bass clef. A more complex example, so when you move from the bass clef to treble clef, this can be a slightly bit more tricky. If you look at this here, you're probably looking at these notes and thinking, my goodness, what do they mean? Or you're probably having to take a wee second to work out what those notes are. That's absolutely fine. If you can work them out either way, it doesn't really matter. You can start from whichever note that you're comfortable with and work your way up to work them out. So one octave higher in the treble clef would look like this. Now, what can you identify between these two transpositions? There's one thing that is identical in all examples. That is the shape of the melody or the bass line or whatever. The shape never changes. So it's very, very important that you realise that if you've transposed something and the shape is different, then you've probably made a wee mistake somewhere. You'll have to go back and double check that. So the shape never ever changes. But how did we get there? So those notes may be a bit, ooh, what are those? But you will know some of them. You'll know that first note there, you know that there's a C and so on, you know that as the A. If the melody was moved to the treble clef at the same pitch, it would look like this. Now remember, before I do this, we've got this anchor point of the C here, so we should identify that as being the same in the treble clef. Yes, see that C there? We get this because we relate the melody to the middle C. Then from here, we can just simply move it up an octave. And it would look like this. And as I say before, look at this shape. Now the shape never changes. So as long as you've got the right shape, you're definitely moving in the right direction. Just make sure you've got the right notes and the right key and octave. Be aware, at every stage, the melody maintains the same shape. That's as simple as it is. Now, I've uploaded a couple of examples for you to complete. If you could return them to me by Friday, and I'll mark them and get back to you. Last week's homework was very good. Thank you for all the submissions. If I haven't got back to you, I'll try and get back to you before the end of this week. I'm snowed in with so many things marking. I didn't quite realise, but we'll get through it. So apologies if I'm taking a wee bit longer, but I will get back to you. And if you have any problems, please let me know. Give me an email or a message and show my homework, and I'll get back to you. Right, thank you.